Hey, welcome back to the SNS College Football Podcast. This is the Week 2 preview, and we always start each week by basically recapping the bigger games that we previewed from the week before. So we got a pretty good agenda for tonight. Some good stuff. We got a conspiracy corner segment from Dave from Houston, who is on the what was I gonna say for our sponsor? We were talking about the
Wolf Cola.
Yeah, Wolf. This podcast is brought to you by Wolf Cola.
Can be also sponsored by Instapath. I just decided.
That's fine too.
Yeah, late sponsorship deal.
An actual legitimate sponsor. Yeah.
I made a deal with myself. And
Yeah.
gave Instapath the rights to advertise.
Nice. So yeah, but yeah, we have some good stuff to talk about this week. Addison, as always, seems like tradition as we let you start with a recap. We're going to start with the abysmal Stanford Northwestern game that was one of the two games we covered last week. Addison, your overall reaction to this game, and obviously we feel like we got jobbed on our bet, but go ahead.
Yeah, for a game that was supposed to be like one of the big games of the week, it was a pretty bad football game, I'd say.
It was terrible.
Neither offense could really move the ball. Even when Northwestern got set up in good spots by their defense, they still blew chances for points. It was 10-7 late in the game. A lot of us had Northwestern plus 6.5. So all Stanford needed to do was just get a first down. Game would have been over. Northwestern stopped them and was getting the ball back with about 30 seconds.
Mm-hmm.
They got strip sacked. Stanford recovered it in the end zone for a touchdown, which obviously blew our cover with like 20 seconds to go in the game. So that was pretty heartbreaking there. Just definitely the first bad beat of the season. So you'll have some of those go against you, some for you over the course of the season, but it is very frustrating that we thought we were going to get out of there with that one, even though Northwestern played like shit, really.
I was going to say, I think, sorry, go ahead. You want to wrap it up.
Well, just another really noteworthy thing about this game, 2 quarterback injuries, one for each team. Costello left the game with what appeared to be a concussion or something, so we don't know what his status is going forward. And they have a big game against USC this upcoming week. Northwestern, Hunter Johnson started the game, the big recruit transfer from Clemson. They didn't look, well, we mentioned their offense was pretty terrible. They didn't look good with him in the game, and TJ Green actually came in and provided they started to move the ball a little better, I thought. And then he ended up leaving the game with an injury, so then Johnson was back in there. So, yeah, quarterbacks being shuffled around, and yeah, just overall terrible offensive game.
Yeah, Northwestern, they averaged 3.2 yards per play. That's pathetic. Stanford wasn't much better at about 4.5 yards per play. What I found interesting as I was looking at my notes here, that Northwestern, I don't know if it's because it was week 1, but kind of uncharacteristic of them. They had a couple key penalties that hurt them in a couple spots, but they missed a lot of tackles. I don't remember the last time I've seen Northwestern miss that many open field tackles, but I also noticed they still cannot rush the passer. They really struggle to get to the passer or defend the pass. I would venture to say that I think Stanford was probably the right side. They really looked like the better football team for sure during like the first half. It's hard to say though. Once Costello went out, once Green went out, because Northwestern did have a spark when Green went in. But at the end of the game, Northwestern, I mean, they did what they do. They were gutting it out. They had a chance to win at the end, and they got the ball back, and true freshman spins, rolls out, gets destroyed. Northwestern bettors are all shaking their heads at the end of that game.
Yeah.
But Dave, any additional thoughts on that just exhilarating game?
Probably Brent Musburger laid a big one on that, and didn't work out too well for him. Just really disappointed in the quarterback play. Thought that either you get good play out of a top recruit like Hunter Johnson, or a guy with NFL pedigree, TJ Green. He played okay. But Costello was okay until he went out. Davis Mills was pretty bad, turned over the ball a couple times. He was a high recruit. I just wish that Northwestern lineman fell on the ball in the end zone, and then we wouldn't be as bitter about this.
Yeah. Those offensive linemen can never pick up the ball.
Yeah, we talked about this. Like, they often have, excuse me, all that tape around like their hands and their wrists, and they can't grab anything. But so we'll move on from that game because that game sucked. To another game where, it's funny when you said those types of beats happen throughout the year. Some go your way, some don't. And you said this certainly won't be the first one. Well, it definitely was not going to be the last one either, because we, as a podcast, all unanimously had Oregon either somewhere between +3 and +4 against Auburn in the primetime game. And, I think I'll start with a few little interesting stats. Oregon, their first 3 drives, they averaged 8 yards per play. They looked like the way better team to start out. Remaining 12 drives, they only averaged 2.8 yards per play. Auburn really, they made some good adjustments. That D-line started to assert their will in the second half. That D-line is for real. But, Dave, we'll start with you this time. Your thoughts about that game in general, and I guess maybe add in your thoughts about the Pac-12 now in general.
Yeah. Well, what surprised me was I thought Oregon's line play held up pretty well early on in the game, and you kind of just back that up with the stats. But their yards per play went down because I think they got worn out. Auburn was pounding the ball. Jatarvius Whitlow I think he had 25 carries, 100 yards. And something like that's just going to absolutely wear a team out. Oregon is historically not been built, to be physical up front, and that is probably why they lost. I'm going to talk about the potential legend of Bo Nix that could be brewing later. But I think Oregon lost because of horrible coaching. Never been a fan of Mario Cristobal, and honestly, there are really only 2 or 3 coaches in the Pac-12 that I think you can trust now. Chris Peterson at Washington, maybe the Pirates. I don't know. Anybody else?
Off the top of my head, Whittingham, I think, from Utah.
Yeah,
maybe.
Whittingham. Okay, that's good. But,
Yeah.
I mean, they wasted 2 timeouts not exactly knowing the substitution of an injured player when Herbert went down for a key play. And this is the second year in a row where they've, been up double digits in the fourth quarter against a, potentially better opponent and blown a lead. So the Pac-12's in trouble this year. This was a game that they had to win to be relevant on the national scale, and they did do it.
Yeah, I'll add too. I'm not a huge fan of Cristobal either. Both teams missed opportunities to add points at critical, points in the game. But Oregon, I think we tallied up maybe 14 to 17 more points that they should have had by the first half. I mean, they really stranglehold on this game. And, at the end of the day, as you mentioned, Bo Nix, his stats weren't great, but for a true freshman, he hung in there. He showed a little. I thought there was like a little Baker Mayfield in him as far as like just being a competitor out there, leading his team as a true freshman. And as far as yards per play, Auburn was around 4.5, Oregon around 4.2 after those first 3 awesome drives. They really. I agree. I think they got worn down. I think the coaching on the Auburn side of the ball was better, although a questionable extra point. When they should have gone for 2, even with a delay at one point. It was like a real crazy bonehead decision by Gus, in my opinion. But I guess a good transition to you. Your thoughts on that game last night?
Well, like that 2-point conversion you're talking about.
Or 2 nights ago, I guess, whatever.
Or the one they didn't go for.
Yeah.
So it was the fourth quarter, and they were down 2, and they got a penalty. Like they had lined up to go for 2, obviously, to tie. And so it backed him up, and they decided to kick the extra point. I thought they should have still gone for it.
They should.
Because at that point, like, you need to try and tie the game. Like, that 1 point doesn't do
anything. Yeah.
So yeah, I agree with you there. I thought that was really weird, but it didn't matter in the end for them. I mean, early on, I was really impressed by Oregon with that hot start. The only problem is they needed to capitalize on some of the opportunities they didn't finish drives on. They were inside the 10 twice in this game and came away with no points. They had a chance to go up like 3 touchdowns early on. I thought that they could have put the game away, honestly. One of the drives, they had a drop touchdown, and then the next play they shanked in basically an extra point for a field goal. And then another one, they were inside the 10, and it was just on the handoff. They fumbled the ball. Oregon almost returned it for a touchdown. So, yeah, they go from they're about to score a touchdown to they're giving Auburn points, basically. So that was a huge swing in the game. This game reminded me a lot of Auburn's first game last year against Washington, where Washington just could not punch the ball in the end zone a few times.
6 times.
Yeah, a few. Yeah, few is underselling that. But, so, yeah, another one at the end of the game. Auburn on the final drive. Was in field goal range. We would have been totally fine if they just kicked that field goal for the win and we still would have covered, but no, they had to go for the jugular, the touchdown. So and
what are you doing? You're one-on-one with a receiver that's like 6 inches taller than you. Come on.
Mario Cristobal. There you go.
What are you doing?
Yeah. Do either of you think that Oregon can run the table the rest of the way?
Fine, but it doesn't matter. I think it. I don't know. I'd say no, just probably because of coaching, because they'll blow another game.
Yeah, I don't think they're going to run the table. I think I would say they're better than everybody they're going to play against. Just first glimpse, I think they're better than Utah by a little bit, but I don't think they're going to run the table.
Yeah, I wouldn't say that.
They'll get out coached by Washington.
I was going to say that's a road game too.
Washington has comparable talent. They'll get outcoached.
Yeah, for sure. All right. Well, yeah. Pac-12 blew it again.
Do you guys think? Do you think Oregon is like about as good as you thought, or better than you thought, just based on seeing them play this year now? Because I thought they honestly looked better.
They looked better.
Yeah, they looked better.
But I agree with Tolman. I thought they got worn down in the second half.
I think they got worn down, and I think they got outcoached. And I could see that happening to them again.
I thought in the second half, Auburn started to run the ball a lot more consistently. It was like not a lot of big plays, but Oregon was having trouble stopping them. So
and that's when we talk about when you talk about certain conferences being better than the others. A lot of times it's not necessarily about a better starting 11 versus another starting 11. It's about the depth and over time in the game. I would think that Auburn just has more talent and athletes that are able to come in and spell a guy. Like Oregon was -4 receivers to even just start the game.
Yeah, that's another thing we didn't mention. They had a couple. It was a bunch of receivers, and 2 of their top guys, I think, were out.
Yeah.
Juwan Johnson this year, one of their transfer receivers from Penn State, he was out.
Right.
And another one of their top guys from last year. So.
Right. So, yeah, it seems like we just keep telling the same story the last few years. Pac-12 blows another spot where they can, impress on a national stage, and Oregon's going to have to run the table to have a chance at the playoff. And I think it really hurts Utah also. If Utah or Washington both were to be teams that would have a chance at the playoff, I think an Oregon win over Auburn looks a lot better for those teams if they then beat Oregon. So, I think it hurts everybody for sure. But we'll move on to – I'm laughing only because, Tolman, I think you're going to enjoy this. I had a subscriber and viewer request to talk about Kansas real quick.
Yes.
Not only did they,
I'm on pace for my overwin.
Yes. So I was gonna say you're gonna enjoy this for not even just that reason, but they did beat and cover against Indiana State their first game. Now their second game here, I thought you guys would find this line kind of weird and maybe stinky. I think they might be down to 9 now, but they were -10 versus Coastal Carolina. That seems like a lot for Kansas. Do you guys smell kind of like a trap there maybe? Like that's kind of a stinky line, isn't it?
I think they'll win.
I mean, I think they'll definitely win, but are they going to cover 10?
I don't
Yeah,
know.
like I think Les Miles can beat whatever conference Coastal Carolina is, Southern or I don't know what it is.
I think Coastal Carolina is in the
Sun Belt.
It might be the Sun Belt. Yeah. Yeah.
I was. Haven't they been good at covering the last few years? Coastal.
I think they've been all right. Yeah.
I was going back through Kansas's like the last 5 years, the games that they've been a favorite in, which obviously there aren't very many. Last year they were favored against Rutgers. They won that one by 30.
Yeah.
But they were also favored against Nicholls State and lost.
Yeah.
They were 2 years ago favored against Ohio, lost. That was 3 years ago.
Yeah.
2 years ago favored against Central Michigan and lost.
Okay.
4 years ago favored against South Dakota State and lost. So, yeah, they've a couple spots have been favorites. They have just been straight up upset. So
I'd love to grab them at 7, but I don't think it's going to get there.
I'm just pumped that we've talked about Kansas like 3 or 4 different times already this year on the pod.
Yeah, I think
on the up and up.
I mean, you got a chance with 2.5. We'll see. But yeah, so wanted to cover that
and it just shows that if there are requests made for topics, we will deliver.
Yeah, we'll definitely cover them for now. I mean, until we get to like thousands of subscribers, we're not going to cover everything for everybody. But for now, if you have a specific request for a team, then in a game maybe we can look at that. But we'll move on now. We don't need to talk about Kansas too much. But Dave, so. New segment this year for you guys that maybe haven't seen the last few pods this year so far, Conspiracy Corner. That's where we're going to talk about some conspiracy theories. This is, I think, very often based on if we do have, possible insider information or we speculate for some kind of reason. But Dave, I'll let you.
Or my crazy mind that just.
Yeah, that too.
Goes off down rabbit holes.
Yeah.
And Wikipedia and. All that stuff.
Yeah,
we're a fan of conspiracy theories here.
Yeah.
Oh, you gotta have it.
Yeah.
So
go ahead.
So some news surfaced this week that the pod's favorite, the pirate, Mike Leach,
the best,
still has not been paid his remaining salary from 2009. And you'll recall, many of you could recall that in 2009 he was fired with a couple games to go. There was a lot of controversy. It was alleged that he locked a player in a closet after concussion, claiming that he was following concussion protocol, and then was unceremoniously fired for poor treatment of players. And that was it. I think the mainstream media agreed. This was poor treatment of a player. Get rid of the pirate and all that. So I talked to a Texas Tech alum who was there and keeping pretty heavy tabs on the program at the time. And when that news came out this week that the Pirates was owed over $800,000 from that season, I got some more insight as to what may have happened with the firing of the Pirate back in 2009. So do y'all remember the player that was allegedly locked in the closet?
It's Craig James' kid, right?
Yeah, Adam James.
It was Adam James. It was Craig James's kid. And what I heard was that he was actually hung over. And he was
This is funny.
He was hung over. He was kept out of practice. And okay guys, when we're hung over, what do we want to do? We want to be in a cold, dark area, left alone, relaxed, not bothered.
That'd be funny if you blacked out and just ended up there.
But so what I'm saying, even if he didn't black out, they knew he was hungover. Wouldn't it be responsible to leave him in a cold, kind of relaxing atmosphere?
I thought that story was just bizarre. It doesn't make sense for them to lock him in a room.
Right.
I don't know. That story didn't make sense, so I wouldn't be surprised if that wasn't the whole truth.
So here's what the Texas Tech fan base thinks. They think that they were trying to help him recover from his hangover, and the Texas Tech administration, at the time, Craig James, was one of the lead analysts on ABC. He was doing the ABC pregame at halftime. So he was a big deal. So they used his notoriety to make a big deal about this in the public so that they could defend firing the pirate. But it turns out, I think the real motivation why they fired the pirate was he had a clause in his contract that if he made it to 10 straight bowl games, and this was his 10th year with Texas Tech, and they were, I think, an 8 or 9 win team. They had already clinched going to the bowls. So if they made it to 10 straight bowl games, he was owed an $800,000 bonus. And that's the money that he's never been paid.
Wow.
So I believe that Texas Tech spun a potential hangover cover-up into their favor so that they could fire Mike Leach and avoid paying him all that money. And it's a sad thing. Mike Leach was a great coach. That program back in the late 2000s, they were fantastic. They were just coming off an 11-1 season. Mike Leach had really built that program up, and then the program's been pretty much down ever since. And I'll just leave you with this. What if we had Mike Leach with Patrick Mahomes? That would have been fun.
Oh, wow. Yeah, that would have.
Yeah, that's it's interesting, and I've heard a lot of weird stuff about Craig James, and he was trying to run for like public office in Texas, and he's kind of like a religious nut. So I don't know. There's definitely some weird stuff going on.
I definitely believe that he would have a lot of sway there, and
yeah.
and he did go on ESPN and like make this like emotional case for getting Mike Leach fired, if I recall, right? Didn't he do something like that?
Something like that, I think.
Yeah, I think he was. I think they, like I said, I think the administration used his notoriety to, make this less of a public relations nightmare.
Yeah. Well,
it's pretty easy to do that if you've got the platform like that.
Yeah, that's an interesting conspiracy, and I'm sure we will have many more to come in the upcoming pod. So we'll move on from that segment, and we'll now go to our winners and losers for the week. We'll each do like a winner. I have a team, a player, and then a coach that I'll do each time. And if you guys want to follow that from this point on, you can. But I guess I'll go first, and then I'll go me, Addison, and then Dave. My winners for the week, Georgia State football beating Tennessee in Knoxville. And I guess some of you might have Tennessee as one of your losers. They seem to be a consistent loser on this pod for the last few years. But yeah, Georgia State going in there, beating an SEC team. Good for them. I saw a video on Twitter of their coach and the team in the locker room after the game. It was really cool seeing. But my winner for the week as far as a player, I really like what I saw out of Spencer Sanders for Oklahoma State, the true freshman starting quarterback. I feel like Corvallis has been touted as a weird place to go in and play and possibly play well in, and I liked his composure. I think that he's going to be a really good one for a team that might be a little bit sneaky coming up in the Big 12 later this year. But I like how he played. I thought he did well. And then Lincoln Riley. I know Houston's defense is absolute dog shit, but the fact that he can take quarterbacks and players overall offensively and always seems to put them in a position to succeed. He was my coach for the week. I'm sure I could think of others that probably had more impact, but it's impressive to me what he continues to do there with different quarterbacks. Addison, you want to go with some winners for the week?
I was going to say Lincoln Riley too.
Oh, okay.
Just because it seems
as
like.
As was I. I had the exact
Geez.
same point written down. So.
Yeah. Seems pretty obvious that it doesn't matter who's got a quarterback. They're going to score like 45 points a game. Really impressive last night. And I mean, we thought that Jalen Hurts. We talked about it. We still thought he was a good quarterback, even though he,
just a different kind of quarterback.
Didn't win the job at Alabama. Yeah, they looked really good last night, and if he keeps playing like that, Jalen Hurts, he's going to be in the Heisman conversation for sure.
100%.
He already moved up to 3-1, by the way.
Yeah,
so
that's crazy.
He's up there at 3-1 with Trevor Lawrence and Tua now.
Wow, yeah, that's crazy. Just one game. Yeah, even though it's against Houston, but I think we know what's coming with Oklahoma's offense.
So we're just doing the winners first.
Yeah, we're just doing the winners first. Yeah. Do you have any others? Or?
I don't really have any others.
Okay. Yeah.
I like to focus on the losers more than anything.
Yeah. Dave, any winners for the week?
Yeah, I'll start the campaign. I'm going to talk about the legend of Bo Nix. It's not just Bo Nix, but it is the legend of Bo Nix.
Right.
Because, look, you can't call him a winner because he played like a freshman for most of the game. He was running around for his life, making throws off all different kinds of, random weight shifts and arm angles. But the guy just, it's like at the end of the game, I had this sense that not only were we going to get fucked over on our bet, but he was just going to it was going to be because of him. He was going to bring some kind of moxie to the table and lead them to win that game. So look, legend of Bo Nix. He's an Auburn legacy, so you kind of just feel a little bit more. And like we were talking about in the group chat this week, Tim Tebow has ordained him, so something's brewing there.
And Gus had the confidence in him at the end of the game to let him throw that ball up there because in field goal range, you can go the route where you just play conservative and just run the ball and then kick it, but they let him go for the throw, and he did have some down moments in the game, but being his first game, that's expected.
Yeah, he is, I think, going to be a star, Dave. His stats didn't tell the story. I think we just saw what you said, the moxie, the leader out there on the field, a competitor. I think he might be the reason that Gus's job gets saved, to be honest, because I thought Gus was kind of on his way out, to be honest, and maybe I was in the minority on that, but now he can show administration and show the world that, hey, this is the guy that, I handpicked to be our next, quarterback. And I think if this kid keeps him...
on top of that, he wants, it's like family for him. That's what he grew up with. So he's, even more personally motivated. He has, a true attachment to that team and to that fan base.
Yeah, and I would say that along with Penn State, I think Auburn's a team that if he improves drastically over the course of this year, that could be a team that's pretty sneaky good by the end of the year. So I agree with Bo Nix. Any other winners, Dave?
Nah.
Okay.
That's good.
We'll move on to our losers now, which is Addison's favorite segment, clearly. I'll start with just a quick three. Purdue. What are you doing? I mean, you're outgaining Nevada by 300 yards going into halftime, and you end up losing that football game. And I touted Jeff Brom as possibly the best coach in the Big Ten West division when we did that podcast. And I still think that he's a really good coach, but it is a little bit concerning that this is another game that Purdue lost to a team that they shouldn't have lost to. They were a double-digit favorite. They didn't close the door. They lost to Eastern Michigan the year before. They've lost to some teams that they shouldn't have lost to. So Purdue, you're my loser for the week. Pick it up. Start closing out these games. My player, this isn't even close. Dorian Thompson-Robinson for UCLA. He is atrocious. I don't know what Chip Kelly's doing. They need to bench him. He is possibly the sole reason that UCLA was not closer in that game or didn't have a chance to win. And I know his line wasn't very good, but even when he had time, he missed receivers all over the place. He had 4 turnovers.
He just dropped the ball.
He literally dropped the ball twice in key spots. So he had an atrocious week. I do not expect him to be the starter for maybe more than 4 more games because maybe Chip just doesn't have anybody else then because I don't know what's going on there. But my loser coach for the week, Willie Taggart. I mean, I don't really know what else to say about this guy. Florida State was blasting Boise, and in our thread we were like, holy shit, Florida State, they look pretty good. Maybe they've bought in year 2. Maybe Willie's got something going. But once again, second half, completely outcoached. Florida State did not score 1 point in the second half. Boise own them in every facet of the game. Like I just think that he is a guy that can recruit pretty well, but he in game just cannot make the adjustments. He gets consistently outcoached. I really do not see him as the head coach of this program after this year. Addison, losers?
We never liked that. We never liked that hire. By
No,
the way.
we hated it. Yeah.
I think we hated
Especially
that one.
Corey was a big doubter of that one
Yeah.
too. I know.
Yeah.
Well, I also had Purdue. They definitely shouldn't have lost that game, but when you turn it over 5 times, and Nevada had no turnovers.
Yes.
So I mean, that's how you lose a game
Yes.
in that situation. They really blew it. You were talking about Braum. He has lost some games that he shouldn't, but he's raised the. I mean, they were so bad before.
Oh no,
it doesn't matter. He's like
right.
His job is in no danger.
He's done great. I just want to point out it's a little concerning games like this.
Oh yeah, it is. Yeah, like this and the Eastern Michigan game last year.
Right.
Very bizarre losses.
Yes.
Moving on, Tennessee. Just every year they give us plenty of reasons to make fun of them.
Tennessee.
I mean, losing to Georgia State now.
It's
not good.
Yeah. It's bad in Knoxville.
Yeah, and then my last loser of the week is the NCAA Rules Committee.
Oh, there we go.
Yes.
I was watching the games on Thursday night, and I saw Cincy get called for a illegal blindside block, and I was like, well, what the fuck is this rule? Like, I hadn't really heard that much about it. And then I saw it again later in the night on an even worse play in the Minnesota game. They called a lineman. It was like a screen pass, and the line was running downfield and just like blew this guy up. But it wasn't even a blindside block. Like, they were just running towards each other, and it was. My worry was that they were just going to start flagging this when they see big blocks, kind of like with targeting, the way they call that.
To give everybody some context as to how upset I knew that Addison was about this, I was flying to South Carolina that night, and I get off the plane and I have, amongst all the other messages, Addison had posted 4 different tweets or GIFs about how bad the blindside blocks were. And I could tell he was pissed because one of them was from the Patriots preseason game. So I knew it was irking him that night.
Yeah, I was actually really pissed off about it. Like, the next day I was still bothered by this. And
why is Marty Smith in a blimp? I don't understand. Anyway, go ahead. I'm sorry.
All right, yeah, anyway, but this rule, so I read the actual wording of the rule, and it's a dumb rule to begin with, I think, but the way they worded it is even dumber because it's so ambiguous. They just say that, if you make a blindside block, it's going to be flagged if there's forcible contact. Well, what the fuck does that mean? That's not defined at all.
Yeah.
And football is a game of forcible contact. I think we can all agree.
Yeah.
If you're not the hammer, you're the nail. So, like, what are you supposed to do if you're trying to block a guy and not use forcible contact? You're going to get blown up. So that doesn't make the game any safer, in my opinion. So it's just a really stupid rule. I feel like every year they just try to make new rules, even if they don't really make much sense, or if they make the game better at all. So, yeah, I think, the need to keep adding rules, like rules committees are just kind of a joke. So.
Yeah, NCAA Rules Committee, definitely a huge loser and joke, in my opinion. Dave, your losers for week 1.
So my loser coach, we already talked about, was Mario Cristobal. But it's not like, I will maybe forgive you if you blew the game, but if you don't know the rules, you are automatically my loser coach of the week.
Right. Yeah, it's pretty bad.
I will go with the hype. So the hype around Nebraska.
Yeah.
I will forgive if you stumble out of the gate a little bit, and you beat South Alabama by 14. That okay, but the hype around Nebraska. Let's see them win the games before we crown them the Big Ten West champs. Some shaky performances in the Big Ten West, by the way. But
yep, for sure.
The worst performances were the teams in the SEC East.
Yeah.
That was bad.
Yeah.
That was very bad. You had Missouri losing to Wyoming.
Yep.
You had You had South Carolina losing to North Carolina. We did get to benefit from some fantastic Mac Brown dancing.
Yes.
As a
That's
result.
great.
You had Tennessee losing to Georgia State or Southern. Can't even remember. Whatever.
Georgia State, yeah.
Yeah, not good.
Yeah.
Not good.
Losing to Georgia is okay. Losing to Georgia State,
not acceptable.
We forgot to mention the Pac-12 too. Very obvious loser there.
Yeah.
We've already ranted enough about
it. It's like we don't even need to say it at this point.
I thought Corey was going to make it on tonight, but Corey from Denver is a Virginia Tech alum for you guys that haven't tuned into the pod before. I would venture to say that Virginia Tech was his loser. He said if Virginia Tech does not win this football game, it's going to be a long year after they lost to BC. And honestly, BC looked a little bit better than what I thought they were going to be this year. Now it's 1 week, but he is, I think, starting to call for Justin Fuente's head. Virginia Tech it looks pretty bad. I think I would say that that's probably his loser for the week.
Yeah.
But so
another loser for the week is the ACC network.
Yeah, it's not even on TV.
Yeah, not enough people have the ACC network.
Yeah.
So then that was one of the games that was on the channel.
Right.
Do you have ACC network, Tolman?
I don't know. I'm like in between cable right now.
He just doesn't have anything. Yeah.
I literally like just got disconnected today and moving to tomorrow or Wednesday. So I don't know. I don't think so.
Yeah, I heard there were some grumblings from people that benefit from your HBO today that said.
No. Ryan called me to complain about me losing my HBO password. I'm like, dude, like I will have it back in a couple days. Like I like negotiated a new cable deal in Houston. It's fine.
Yeah, it sounds like a lot of people.
You can go without your Sesame Street, for
right.
a couple days.
Yeah,
a lot of HBO for a while.
Yeah, thanks.
Which is cut off now too.
Oh, that sucks. Yeah, I forgot about that. Yeah, so all right, well, yeah, we'll.
So tune in next week because I will be my HBO Go group.
Yeah, right. So yeah, we'll move on to our next segment to be our week 1 betting recap. So generally, what we're gonna do is we're gonna mention our 1 or 2 best bets that came through, and then maybe one of our worst bets, just to show that we're not just only talking about the winners, but we'll go from left to right on our doc here. So Corey, he had a winning week. I actually think everybody in the pod had a winning week but me. But units-wise, I broke even. That's all that matters to me. But I would say that Corey, Utah -5, they obviously covered against BYU, were clearly the right play. One of his worst bets, Pitt +3 versus Virginia. They didn't look very good. Virginia got a critical win as far as their win total is concerned, I think. But yeah, Pitt blew it. Steele is still currently having a good week. It looks like he added over 55 in the Notre Dame-Louisville game early on, but he's doing very well. He had BC +4. We talked about Boston College, Virginia Tech. Boston College throttled them. The score was not.
That was a late bet he made.
That over? Yeah, kind of interesting. Maybe he snuck it in the first quarter there. But yeah, no, he's having a really good week. He had, what's another one? Tulsa +23. I know that was a bet that I think multiple members of the pod made. One of his worst bets, Morgan State +24 against Bowling Green.
He didn't know anything about Morgan State or Bowling Green.
Nah, he just knew that Bowling Green had terrible coaches. He went with Morgan State. Bowling Green won by like 49 or 46.
Yeah, they crashed.
So yeah, not a good one. Addison, if you want to go over your own, one of your best bets and one of your worst, I guess.
Best was, I'd say, the Michigan State game because, well, first of all, on Twitter, I predicted a score of 28-7, and that's what it ended up being. So that
perfect
aspect of it is definitely my best bet.
Yeah.
Is that your best bet of all time?
Yeah, probably.
Yes.
Yeah, we've hit the ceiling. You can't go any higher.
But we said last week that, and Nick said it too because that was his best bet. Mm-hmm. But we thought that Tulsa was really going to struggle to score points, and what was their rushing total?
Negative 76.
Negative 76 rushing yards. Yeah, Sparty's defense really did smother them pretty much. Their D-line was unblockable. And Sparty, last year had some offensive troubles. They still looked like they didn't run the ball very well.
Vanilla play calling.
Yeah, it was
Not a lot
very
of push on the O-line. Yeah.
Yeah, there was a lot of that. So, typical Sparty game, really. So, we covered pretty easily in that one. My worst bet of the week is definitely the Mississippi State bet. Had them -20. I don't like to pick big favorites a lot. I didn't see this game, but they only won by, 10 points?
Yeah.
At one point, they were covering, but I don't know what happened. I think Mississippi State had a lot of turnovers, which definitely hurt my cause.
Yeah.
But,
You should have gone 7-1 though. I mean, your 2 other losses were
the other ones. Yeah, I can't pick the other ones because of the way I lost them. So.
But a lot of unders it looks like came through for you. So yeah, you had a great week. Like I said, I had the only technical, losing week on the pod. But
your best bet won. So.
Best bet won. Best bet is 2-0 this year. I believe it is 11-2 going back the last 13 to last year. So you got to tune in for that, obviously. I would say my best bet was the Ole Miss Memphis under 68 that finished at 25 points. I thought both defenses would be improved this year. Both offenses I thought were new and were going to struggle. They both did. I am actually on the Ole Miss under again this next week. We'll get into that possibly coming up here in the pod. But my worst bet, Louisiana Tech, they just didn't really show up against Texas. It was more of a situational bet. Like I thought Texas might be looking ahead to LSU. We're about to preview that game in a little bit here, but not a great bet there. Dave, you want to go ahead and give like one of your best bets, your winners, and then one of your losers?
Sure. So my best bet of the week turned out to crush. So my best bet was Tulane -2
Hell yeah.
over Florida International with a little bit of insider info. I still think keep an eye on Tulane in the AAC West. They could be a real contender there. I think they got a good team.
Nice.
All of my losses were bad beats. Northwestern, Oregon, and I'll even say Duke was a bad beat. There was just a garbage.
Yeah, I felt like that was bad.
A garbage touchdown when nobody was playing. But I will tell you what should have been my worst bet. I was pretty drunk after this wedding, and I was getting overconfident about a Louisiana bet. Like I think it was Louisiana -28 over Grambling, and I was like, oh, I'm gonna book that one. And I went to book it, and then I realized the next day that it didn't actually book it, and Louisiana didn't cover, so at least I didn't do that.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice.
Careful with those drunken bets.
Yeah,
overconfident. I was like, oh, I know about everything about
my
Louisiana.
my best drunk bet ever was I took Navy +7 against South Florida a few years ago. They were losing the game by like 30. And I went to bed, and they came back and pushed. It was amazing.
Yeah. So, the pod overall did great this last week. Our best bets murdered, so we definitely were positive on the units compared to guys like Clay Travis and some other noobs that are in the, national media.
There's a lot of scammers out there.
A lot of scammers. So... Let's move on to the week 2 preview now. We got 2 games.
Notre Dame got that ball back?
I guess so, yeah. We got 2. Yeah, we're watching Notre Dame Louisville live right now. Pretty tight game. We've got a couple on this pod with Notre Dame -18. That is not looking as good right now. But we'll move on to the 2 premier games for next week. We're going to start with Clemson versus A&M. I actually don't know what the current line is. It's been moving around a lot. I think it's around 17.
18.
Is it 18? Okay.
I saw 18 like 2 hours ago, but
okay.
It's like between 17 and 8, or 17 and 19.
Yeah. So obviously, both these programs played pretty much nobody in week 1. A&M played Clemson very tough last year in College Station, but they are obviously in Death Valley and Clemson this year. And my question, I'll start off to you guys. Well, I'll start with you, Dave, actually, is can A&M prevent explosive plays, when Clemson's on offense? Because last year, A&M 70th in the country versus the run as far as explosive plays given up, 124th versus the pass. And in the offseason, it didn't seem like that was going to get a whole lot better for A&M. I think a lot of people felt like their defense was going to be very leaky again. Do you think is that going to be a huge problem in this game?
Yeah, I think it could be. I think that the only chance that I see a lot of explosive plays happening, but if Texas A&M can force some turnovers, they had 4 interceptions last week. So if Trevor Lawrence had a bit of a slow start, if he's still shaking off a little bit of rust and they can turn him over, maybe that's their chance. But ultimately, I don't see a huge opportunity here because if Lawrence struggles, you've got the best security blanket in the nation. You've got Travis Etienne, who can pound the ball and control the clock, or potentially unstoppable explosive plays.
Yeah. Addison, your thoughts on that question overall, and you can add whatever you want, obviously.
Yeah, I don't think they're going to be able to really slow Clemson down too much. Like that close game last year, that was before Clemson's offense really became what it was, because you still had Kelly Bryant and Trevor Lawrence splitting time. That was before Trevor Lawrence really got comfortable and took over the starting job. So their offense got a lot more potent as that season went on. So yeah, that side of the ball, it's going to be tough for A&M to slow down Clemson. On the other side, I guess finally we'll get because this Georgia Tech game, we didn't really find out anything about Clemson's new look D-line because Georgia Tech's offense is just trash. Right. And just going to a new scheme, you can't really take away much from that. So it'll be tougher for them this week. I think they'll be fine for the most part. As far as the line, if it's 18 or something like that, it's hard to say. I'd probably lean Clemson, I guess.
I think I from what I've seen from just public sentiment, I think everyone feels like it's too many points. I really think that A&M, they must start fast, or at least prevent Clemson from starting fast, because this one could get out of hand if Clemson just, Etienne, if he busts one early, or if Clemson gets 2 quick touchdowns, they're up 14-0 in the first quarter. This could be bad, and you do not want that crowd into the game for the whole game. I would definitely lean Clemson, and I would give the points, to be honest. I think that, I guess on the other side of the ball, the thing is that if Kellen Mond can find time versus that new D-line to make some plays down the field, then maybe they can keep it within the number. But I'm expecting Clemson's talent on the defensive line to show up. Obviously, I don't think this D-line is going to be what it was last year. But I think I would lean Clemson in giving the points at home here. Dave, your thoughts on the line? Do you have a lean, perhaps?
If I would lean Clemson, but I'm probably going to stay away on this one.
Yeah, I'd say the same. I think it's probably about right.
I think it's a hard pass, yeah. But any other thoughts before we move on to the next game, guys? Anything you want to add?
I was just looking at the games that A&M has been heavy underdogs in.
Yeah.
Obviously, most of them are against Bama. Last year, plus 26 against Bama. They covered that one. 2 years ago, plus 25 against Bama. They only lost that game by 8 points. Mm-hmm. 3 years ago, plus 18 against Bama. They lost by 19.
Of course, someone did.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
I think home field is going to be a huge factor. That's just why I lean Clemson.
Well, it seems like we're definitely leaning. We think Clemson's 100%
this game.
Win.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, we think Clemson's definitely winning, and it's just a matter of if they cover or not.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what I'm saying. That's why I'm leaning on them for the points.
Right.
Just could get out of hand fast there.
Okay. Yeah, so we'll move on to a game that I think could potentially be a little closer. I think some of us might not think that's the case, but LSU's at Texas. And, this is a game that's been talked about for a long time leading up to this. In the offseason, I think both fan bases are very excited for this game. Dave, you obviously have a feel for the locals down there. Have they been is this the game that they've been looking forward to this year? Just because obviously they played nobody in week 1, but do you happen to know if there are any local Texas fans around that area? Has there been anything back and forth as far as the fan bases jawing at each other?
I think the local Texas fans admit that their team is a little bit overrated, and I think that the LSU fans are feeling pretty good about this game, especially, you know, a lot of experts, a lot of people in the media were expecting LSU to come out a little bit slow against Southern, but they didn't. New passing game coordinator Joe Brady and Joe Burrow seem to be working pretty well together in that game.
Yeah.
So I think the sentiment is LSU feeling pretty good about that. Personally, I agree. To me, it comes down to line play. I think LSU dominates there. I think LSU can stop Texas's offense. Don't be surprised if Texas jumps out to like a 10-0 or 14-3 lead. I think over the course of the game, LSU is going to wear them down, and I am looking at a score of LSU 31-21. Addison, you can tweet that.
All right, there we go. I guess I'll give a couple quick thoughts. Texas, the last couple of years, they've really struggled to create explosives. So my question, I guess, to you, Addison, would be, are they going to be able to move the chains like consistently enough against LSU's defense to keep this game? I don't want to say like keep it competitive, because I think a lot of people do think it'll be competitive, but do you think they're going to be able to do that? Are they going to be able to move the chains or win this game without creating explosives?
Win the game? No. I think they can do enough to keep it close, though. And it's at 4.5 right now.
Yeah, it's 4.5. Some books have 5.
And
it depends, yeah.
Some of you guys I know got this way early and got it at 3?
Corey and I booked it 2 months ago. 3.
Yeah.
I would have taken it up to like 7.5. Honestly.
Yeah.
Anyway, yeah, I think it's going to be a close game. I do think LSU is the better team. We've talked a lot about in the preseason pods that we think Texas is overrated. Not really a top 10 level team. I mean, they got outgained last year in conference play, and that's not what elite teams do. You mentioned they do lack explosive play or making ability. They did last year at least. So if they can't improve on that this year, then yeah, it will be tough for them to beat teams like LSU. I mean, they have enough talent to keep it close for sure. By close, I mean within a touchdown. I'm not saying they're going to cover. I don't really have strong feelings either way, I guess, on the spread, but that's the kind of game I see. Probably like LSU by a touchdown, I'd say.
Okay. Yeah, Dave, I'm with you. I think I'm in the minority as far as I think LSU is going to walk in there and blow them out. I really have a hard time seeing Texas winning the standard downs, staying ahead of the chains in this game, and I don't think they're going to be able to create explosives. And Texas wasn't overly strong on defense last year. I don't expect them to be any kind of juggernaut this year, especially playing within the Big 12. I think LSU is obviously very experienced. They have the new passing game. It looked sharp against a crap team. We're going to see how it looks against a team that definitely has, like we said, a lot of talent on that roster, just a lot of younger talent.
Texas is DBU, right?
You're right, yeah. A little tweet from them with their DBU shirts.
Yeah.
I'm sure that LSU is going to be shown that. A little motivation for them there. But I really think LSU is going to win this game by double digits. And I don't know by how many double digits, but I really do not expect Texas to hold up, especially in the second half. I think you'll see a closer game at first, but I think LSU is going to wear them down. I think that they're going to walk in there and come out of there with a pretty impressive win. You want to say something, Addison, or any?
I was just going to say, if Texas is going to this year create explosive plays, I'd say their best shot's Colin Johnson, the receiver.
Yeah.
6'6", big target. It's a guy who could be a good downfield jump ball threat for them.
LSU churns out 6'3" corners, so this is not.
Yeah.
This is not the week.
What's Stingley? He's starting too, right? Derek Stingley.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think he's like 6'1" or something, 6', 6'1"
Yeah.
maybe.
Yeah,
I think he's
I
a
don't
little
know.
taller
I don't know
than
how tall he is, honestly, but
But I think they've got Patrick Surtain Jr. I think he's 6'3".
yeah, bunch
know if
of
he started.
NFL pedigree guys. So yeah, and Stingley, like they've been talking him up a ton. He was like one of the top few recruits in last year's class, right?
Yeah.
Like as far as cornerback, he's been getting like some of the most hype I've ever heard from like a guy.
Yeah,
so.
he's. I've heard he's the real deal. We'll see when they obviously play against better playmakers, better receivers, better quarterbacks overall. But I think we're all expecting LSU to walk into Austin and come out with a victory. I think we seem to defer a little bit on what type of victory, but this is actually my best bet for the week. This is the one I feel the most confident in. Dave, is this your best bet?
Yeah, I got them at 4.5. It's still my best bet. Like I said, my score prediction's 31-21, so I feel comfortable taking them up to like 6.5 or 7.5.
Yeah, I think this is actually Corey's best bet too. I'm pretty sure. But we'll actually move on now. So we've got LSU winning in Austin. We've got Clemson winning at home against A&M. So probably nothing too surprising there. But let's get into the last segment of this pod. We're going to talk about our week 2 bets that we have placed. And if you guys watch the pod, this is going to be pretty early when this is uploaded. But if you look in the description box below the video, that's where I'll put all of our bets for the upcoming week. I have our records, so they're pretty transparent there for, obviously previous weeks added up. And you'll have to check back all the way up till Saturday. We tend to add bets as we go along, obviously. But we'll start with Addison. If you have, I see you got one bet booked here.
We've got one so far.
Okay, yeah. Do you just want to talk about that real quick? Because you and Dave and I all have this one. So, yeah, go for it.
Okay. Illinois minus 20.5, which feels really weird when you're booking that, laying that many points with the Illini. But they're playing UConn this week, and UConn is fucking terrible. They are one of the worst teams in the country.
Still.
Who'd they barely beat this past week? Like Wagner or something like that?
Somebody really bad.
Yeah.
What state is Wagner from?
I don't know.
No clue.
Yeah, I have no idea. Here, I'll get on there. I'll be IT here.
I'm gonna guess New York, but I really don't know.
Yeah, go ahead, Addison. I'll look it up.
But anyway, yeah. Illinois, I think I have their over on wins this year, so I think they're a little better than they were last year. They did just they dominated whoever they played. It wasn't a good team, but UConn's not a good team either.
Yeah. They killed Akron. Akron's terrible.
Akron, that was it. Yeah. So is UConn really that much better than Akron?
No, UConn's worse, I think.
Yeah.
I think honestly UConn might be worse.
I saw you booked that at like 18.5, and then I was like, oh yeah, I need to get on that.
Yeah.
And it was at 20.5, and I was like, I don't care. It's still under 3 touchdowns. At that point, it's still good. So.
Yeah. Quick little tidbit here. Wagner College is in Staten Island, New York, and it has 2,200 students.
Good call, Tallman.
Sweet.
Wow, that's bad, UConn. Anyway, go ahead, Addison. Yeah.
So that's my only one I have booked so far.
Yeah. Any leans, perhaps?
Yeah, I'll definitely be booking some more over the course of the week. One of my leans, though, so far when I saw it was Rutgers plus 20.5 against Iowa.
I think it's still at 20.5. Yeah.
Yeah. That's a lot of points for Iowa to cover, I think. And Rutgers, it was only against UMass, but they look much improved offensively. I mean, the fact that they can complete passes now is a huge improvement.
Yeah, it's not 1869 anymore. And
right.
They reacted the game on their campus that week, and it's funny that they were so bad at passing the year before. They were basically the same as they were in 1869.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah.
Like last year, they were one of the worst passing teams I can remember.
Yeah.
They've got a Texas Tech transfer at quarterback now. And they put up 56 points, I think it was, against UMass. So they definitely look better offensively than last year. And Iowa, I still have questions about how they're going to move the ball, losing their 2 great tight ends from last year, and with a running game that really was not very good last year. So definitely questioning them being able to put up enough points to cover this number.
Yeah. Dave, do you want to go ahead and give some of your bets, and if you have any other leans or anything like that?
Sure. So I already said that LSU is my best bet of the week. I also like Syracuse. I got them -1 against Maryland. Look, I know that Maryland won 79-0 last week, but it was against Howard. Howard might be one of the worst FCS teams this year. So I think Syracuse is at least an upper half ACC team, and I think they're going to be okay there. I like a lot Southern Miss +16.5 against Mississippi State. I think that looking a little bit more into Southern Miss, they have a pretty solid defense. They have a quarterback that's pretty efficient. I could see that being a little bit of a sleepy game in Starkville for Mississippi State. So I like Southern Miss there, and I like Southern Miss to contend in Conference USA this year. Probably my second best bet of the week I'm feeling pretty good about right now is Army Michigan under 48.5.
Okay. Yeah.
Just either one of two ways. Army could control the clock and just keep the scoring down, but even if they don't, I think Harbaugh is going to have too much respect for Army, and if it's a blowout, definitely take the foot off the gas like sometime in the third quarter.
That's a good point
I was
about
thinking
Army.
that, yeah.
Well, I mean, they almost beat Oklahoma last year, and I'll be looking at a lot of Army unders for sure this year. As always, this past week, it's funny. Army had 2 10-minute touchdown drives.
Yeah, that's crazy. Okay, well, yeah, I guess I'll give real quick one for Corey and one for Steele. Corey, like I said, he's with us, Dave. He loves LSU at Texas. One that he and I both have, he and I both got Missouri at -11 versus West Virginia. That lines up to 14, I believe now. Missouri's coming off of, we mentioned this briefly, a bad loss at Wyoming. West Virginia played pretty poorly versus James Madison. I think James Madison actually outgained them in total yards. We like Missouri coming home off of a bad loss, pissed off to actually lay it on West Virginia. So we think they bounce back there, but he's got that one. Steele's got Old Dominion +29. I believe they're at Virginia Tech.
I thought about that too.
Yeah, I think he thinks that Virginia Tech is just not overly talented again this year. Old Dominion beat them straight up last year. Yeah, sorry, Corey. It looks like Steele also has the Black Cats, UC, coming into the shoe at +17. Real quick, because us three are obviously OSU fans. Dave, if you had to lean one way or the other, if that line is 17, how do you feel about that game briefly here?
I would just go Homer and Ohio State, but I'm not betting on Ohio. I'm not betting or looking at Ohio State lines this year.
Yeah. Addison, any thoughts on that line? Is it about right, or do you think it's not enough?
I think it's about right, by the way.
About right, I'd say. Yeah. It should be at least 2 touchdowns, so I think that's about right.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah.
I think Cincy will play tough for a half and then we'll pull away.
Okay. Yeah, I would tend to agree with that. But yeah, and then I guess I'll give. So I already gave LSU as my best bet, obviously. I have a bunch already. There's a lot that I like this week. I guess I'll give. Let's see. I like Illinois as well. I've got a funny one that I'll just mention, I guess, and then you guys will obviously see the picks, like I said in the description box below. I got a bunch of unders, but I like 2 large dogs this week. New Mexico State +55.5 at Bama. Bama, the last, I believe it's 8 times they've been a favorite of 40-plus points. I think they're 2-6 against the spread. I think that they play South Carolina the next week. It's not that it's like a look ahead to that, but maybe it's a look ahead to SEC play. They already are kind of thin at a couple spots, having some guys be injured in preseason, a couple injuries against Duke. I think they're going to get up very quickly, coast at the end. If they win 56-7, that's still a cover. So
Yeah.
I think I just need New Mexico State to score a point.
I'm actually done betting against Bama and big spreads because every time I do it, I'm just tired of having like their fifth string running back get a garbage time
Yeah.
touchdown to ruin it.
Yeah.
So I'm also done with that for this year too.
Yeah, understandable. Another one that I took, which I could see this blowing up in my face, but I like it's another spot bet. Like I had Louisiana Tech last week. I like Central Michigan plus 35 at Wisconsin. Wisconsin is coming off of a blowout win down in South Florida. They have a bye with Michigan then coming into town after that bye. So I think if there were to be a letdown spot for Wisconsin, I'm going to say it's going to be this week. I think they get up very quickly and they get up by quite a bit, but I think they're going to coast in the second half. I think Central Michigan, they were atrocious last year, but I think they have enough offensively to keep that within the number. So a couple of large spreads there, but like I said, if you guys are looking for our picks, we have a bunch more that will be in the description box. There'll be more that will be added through the week. But any closing thoughts from you, Addison, before we wrap it up?
Week 1, I feel like there's just a lot of sloppy play. You know, understandable. So
yeah, lack of tackling, a lot of penalties. Dave, any other thoughts from you?
Nothing was really impressive. I don't think we learned a whole lot. A couple good games this upcoming week, but still might not learn a whole lot.
Yeah, generally it's consensus over a long period of time that these teams generally improve the most from week 1 to week 2. And then there's usually gradual improvement throughout the year for the teams that do tend to improve. So week 2, you might see some confirmation of some teams that looked really good in week 1. You might see some teams that go up against better talent and don't look as good. But certainly those 2 premier games will be interesting. And we'll see after that. So, yeah, that'll be it for the week 2 pod. We'll see you guys next week for the week 3 preview.